I still remember the smell from that day so clearly. The smell of roasted turkey, butter, the cinnamon in the pumpkin pie, and the hot burning shame in my throat. It was Thanksgiving. The whole family was gathered, 23 people sitting around a long table covered with a white tablecloth, crystal glasses sparkling, scented candles glowing softly, like something straight out of a happy family spread in an American magazine. And me, Harper, 29 years old, sitting right there with them, smiling politely, nodding at the right moments, even though all I really wanted was to eat quickly and go home. My mother was in full queen of the stage mode. She walked back and forth, pouring wine, bringing out dishes, chatting and laughing, and she just kept talking about Chloe, my younger sister, Chloe, the princess of the family. Newly married, 6 months in, and half of that wedding had been paid straight out of my bank account. When everyone was almost finished eating, my mother raised her wine glass, smiling brightly, and her voice rang out, loud and clear. Honestly, Chloe is twice the woman my Harper will ever be. The whole table went dead silent. Cutlery stopped mid-air. The lively conversations suddenly died, like someone had hit the pause button. 23 pairs of eyes all turned toward me. I don't know when I got used to this feeling. The feeling of being used as the inferior example in front of a crowd. But that day was different. Not because what my mother said was new. She'd been comparing us like that my whole life. But because deep down I knew I was the one who had paid for my sister's fairy tale dream. I set my wine glass down very slowly. I heard the soft click as it touched the wooden table, so clear that it even startled me. A thought flashed through my mind. Are you going to swallow it again? Force a smile and let it slide, like every other time? Then images started running through my head, like a slideshow. Bank statements, transfers, confirmation emails for the venue, the photographer, the flowers, the honeymoon. I saw myself working overtime until 9 or 10 at night. I saw myself, at the end of the month, opening my account and watching the balance drop, still trying to reassure myself. It's okay. It's for family. It's for Chloe. And now, in return, I got to hear this. Chloe is twice the woman Harper is. I lifted my head and looked straight at my mother. She was still smiling, thinking she'd just made some funny remark to spice up the dinner. My mouth spoke before my brain could censor it. Well then, tell Chloe to pay me back the $80,000 I spent on her wedding. That would be fair. The room exploded in silence. Uncle Robert, the one who never stops talking about fishing, had his mouth open, in the middle of bragging about the biggest fish he'd ever caught. His mouth was still open, but no sound came out. My dad started coughing, almost choking on a piece of cranberry sauce. And my mother's face went from pink to white, from white to red, as if someone had just slapped her over and over. Chloe, my sister, was sitting a few seats away, staring at me wide-eyed as if I had turned into a completely different person. A Harper she had never met before. A Harper who didn't stay silent. My grandmother was the first to speak, her voice trembling. "The $80,000, dear?" I turned to her and nodded calmly, even though my heart was thudding wildly in my chest. "Yes, Grandma. Around that. I can send all the invoices for everyone to see, if needed." My mother hissed through her teeth. "Harper, this is not the time to talk about money. Today is Thanksgiving, and we have guests." I gave a cold little smile. "But when you told those same guests that I'm not even half as good as my sister, was that better timing, Mom?" A few relatives lowered their heads, pretending to focus on carving the turkey, but I could see clearly that they were leaning in to catch every word. Chloe finally spoke, her voice unsteady. "Harper, what are you saying? You offered to help. No one forced you." I turned and looked straight into her eyes. "Yeah, I offered. I offered to drain my savings so you could have your dream wedding. But offering doesn't mean the whole family gets to erase it like it never happened." My dad tried to put on his man-of-the-house voice. "Your mother was just joking. Why do you have to blow it out of proportion? It's a holiday. Everyone's together. Don't ruin the atmosphere." I turned to him and gave another thin smile. Am I ruining it? Or was it the "Chloe is twice the woman you are" line? If we're going to drag our daughter's worth out and compare it at the dinner table, then I think gently reminding everyone about the $80,000 isn't that outrageous. Silence again. In that silence, I could hear a lot of things. I heard all the years I had worked myself to the bone, getting promoted, doing overtime, thinking that if I just tried harder, my family would be proud of me. I heard all my mother's calls, always the same. "Chloe is so stressed from wedding planning. The venue they like is a bit pricey. Can you help out so she doesn't feel embarrassed in front of the groom's family?" And me, every time, "Yes, I've got it." Then hanging up and swallowing that feeling that I was nothing more than a walking wallet. Now, in front of me was a table full of faces, shocked, curious, and annoyed. No one dared say outright that I was wrong. But from their eyes, I was sure they were thinking, "She brought up money at the dinner table. That's so tasteless." Interesting, isn't it? When my mother pulled out her daughter's value and weighed it in front of everyone, nobody thought that was tasteless. But when I mentioned the amount I'd spent in the name of family love, suddenly that was the problem. I took a deep breath and looked around the table. Let me make this clear, so no one misunderstands. I don't begrudge the money. If everything I gave had been exchanged for a bit of respect, a thank you, or at the very least, not being publicly humiliated, I'd say it was cheap. But obviously to Mom, I'm still the lesser one, even though I'm the one who worked to pay for the wedding of the daughter who's supposedly worth twice as much. Chloe squeezed Tyler's hand, her husband, and I saw him swallow. This was probably the first time he'd heard the exact number 2. My mother spoke in a low voice, every word sharp. "Your sister has gone through a lot. Wedding stress, a new marriage, Tyler's career not being stable yet. She needed support." I nodded. "I know. But did you ever ask me, 'Harper, are you tired?' Did you ever ask, 'Do you have enough money for your own future?' Or in your eyes, am I just the single daughter with no kids, no husband, and lots of money, so obviously that money is there for the family to use?" The air was thick now. Everyone looked at me like they couldn't recognize the quiet, well-behaved Harper from all the previous years. But this was still me. The only difference was that today, I had decided not to stay silent. I lifted the napkin off my lap, placed it on the table, and stood up. "Thank you for dinner. The turkey was delicious. But I think I'll leave early. I suddenly realize I'm not very compatible with this comparing your children menu." My mother shot up from her chair. "You dare walk out of this house in the middle of Thanksgiving just because of some petty money issues?" I turned back and looked at her one last time. "It's not about the money, Mom. If it were just about money, I wouldn't have been able to pay that much. I'm walking out of this house because for 29 years I've been treated as less valuable. And today I finally realized I'm the one who paid for the very value you're worshiping." I glanced at Chloe. She didn't have that smug look she always had whenever Mom took her side. Instead, there was something like confusion and fear. Maybe for the first time, she realized that her fairy tale wedding was built on someone else's back. I walked out of the dining room, through the kitchen, down the hallway, opened the door. No one followed. No one tried to stop me. Only the cold wind hit my face, making my eyes sting, though I couldn't tell if it was the weather or everything collapsing behind me. Behind me, the Clark family's Thanksgiving dinner continued, but it would never be the same again. And that was only the beginning. I still had no idea that this $80,000 would later be exposed by me as a miscalculation, and with it would come another earthquake, even more painful. If you want to understand why I exploded that Thanksgiving, you have to go far back to the years when I thought I was fine, when in reality, I was being worn down piece by piece. I, Harper, was raised with, "You're the eldest daughter. You must think for the family. You're the big sister. Let your sibling have it. You're more responsible, so take some weight off your parents." And Chloe was raised with, "You're mommy's princess. Just live however you want. It's okay, your sister will handle it." And just like that, the two daughters grew up under two completely different sets of rules. Everything seemed pre-programmed. I wore work boots, and Chloe wore a crown. I remember the nights I stayed up studying for the SATs, watery coffee in hand, my desk lamp dim and flickering like it was dying with me. Meanwhile, Chloe was climbing out the window in a short skirt and red lipstick, jumping into some boy's car and speeding off somewhere. When my parents found out, no scolding, no grounding, just a sigh. She's a teenager. School is stressful. And me? Just because I scored slightly lower than expected on the AP chemistry entrance exam, my mother shot me a glare sharp as a knife. "If you don't improve, how will people respect you?" Right. I had to excel, so Chloe could shine. When I was 17, I worked part-time at a bookstore, 20 hours a week. The first time I held my $300 paycheck, I felt like I'd struck gold. That evening, Chloe showed off a $500 dress Dad had just bought her. I asked him, "Dad, can you buy me one too? I like that style." Just because I scored slightly lower than expected on the AP chemistry entrance exam, my mother shot me a glare sharp as a knife. "If you don't improve, how will people respect you?" Right. I had to excel, so Chloe could shine. When I was 17, I worked part-time at a bookstore, 20 hours a week. The first time I held my $300 paycheck, I felt like I'd struck gold. That evening, Chloe showed off a $500 dress Dad had just bought her. I asked him, "Dad, can you buy me one too? I like that style." Her reason? "School suffocates my creativity. I want to be an influencer." I gave a bitter laugh. If I had said that, my parents would have flipped the table. But my mother hugged her. "Follow your passion, sweetheart. Life is short." I stood there watching, amused, and genuinely sad. I worked at Oaklight Publishing, one of the biggest publishing houses on the West Coast. I signed million-dollar contracts, managed budgets the size of a small business. Yet, when I told Mom I'd gotten a promotion, she simply said, "Okay, good. Anyway, Chloe's thinking of starting a new vlog. Do you think this concept fits her? When would I ever become the main character in my mother's story?" And then I realized, I'm the one who remembers everyone's birthdays. I'm the one who sends holiday gifts. I'm the one who drives Chloe 2 hours to her wedding dress fittings. I'm the one who pays for all the nameless, endless wedding crises. But when I needed someone to ask, Are you okay? No one asked. I became the responsible sister, reliable Harper. She'll take care of it. But within the family hierarchy of value, I was nothing more than Chloe's shadow, a shadow meant to stand nearby so others could marvel at Chloe. A shadow not allowed to make mistakes. A shadow not allowed to be tired. A shadow not allowed to be angry. A shadow not allowed to want anything. But the shadow still had to pay. When my mother stood in the middle of the Thanksgiving dinner and said, "Chloe is twice the woman you are," she didn't know that sentence landed directly onto the weight of 29 years. She didn't know that behind my calm smile was a childhood and youth spent being compared, sidelined, taken for granted. My family believed Harper was the strong one, the enduring one. But the truth? I wasn't strong because I wanted to be. I was strong because if I wasn't, no one else would step in. And that day, when I brought up the $80,000, I wasn't just talking about money. I was talking about pain. I was talking about my youth. I was talking about being alone. I was talking about every time I'd been pushed aside so Chloe could shine. They didn't hear any of that. They only heard the number. But they were the ones who created it. If someone asked me, "Harper, what moment pushed your life into the bitterness you feel now?" I wouldn't say it was my mother's "half a woman" comment at Thanksgiving. I would say it was Chloe's wedding, because that was the moment I realized I wasn't a sister, wasn't a daughter. I was an emotional ATM machine placed right in the middle of the Clark family living room. Just 4 words. But the way my mother said them made it sound like Chloe was about to be crowned Miss Universe. I answered, "Well, what can I help with?" That was it. In that exact moment, I slipped the noose around my own neck for the next 6 months. Because in my family, when Harper asks, "How can I help?" what they actually hear is, "I'll pay for everything." I still remember the day we toured the wedding venue. There were giant floral arches, imported crystal chandeliers, and a hall so large it looked like the UN General Assembly. I said softly, "Chloe, this is a bit expensive." My mother immediately shot me a "Harper, don't ruin the mood" look. A wedding only happens once in your life. We have to make it worthy. And what did worthy cost? $25,000 just for the deposit. Chloe turned and hugged me. "Harper, I know you support me." Support? I didn't mean supporting her with my wallet, but my mother slid the bill toward me anyway. The first payment, $3,000. The next, $5,000. The third, $7,500, because that style is outdated now, sis. By the 4th time, I laughed. Laughed like someone who hadn't slept in 3 days. "Chloe, be honest. Are you marrying Tyler or the dress?" Chloe wrapped her arms around me, pouting. "I just want to be perfect on my big day. You love me, right?" I did love her, but my bank account strongly disagreed. At first, I thought she just wanted simple fresh flowers. But no, my sister wanted 10 flower arches, 60 decorated tables, flowers on every chair, flowers hanging from the ceiling, flowers lining the aisle, flowers in the dressing room, flowers in the bathroom too. Total damage, $5,000. I looked at Chloe, then at Mom, then at the invoice like it was a medical diagnosis I didn't want to read. Chloe changed her wedding photographer 3 times. The first one's color grading was bad. The second made me smile in the wrong vibe. The third lacked creativity. I asked, "Are you doing a wedding photo shoot or auditioning for Hollywood?" Chloe giggled, "I need someone who understands my light." Meanwhile, the only light I saw was the one burning through my credit card. Then Chloe sent me a link to a 5-star resort in Cabo. She wrote, "Harper, this one is on sale. Such a good deal." The discount was $100, but the final bill, $5,000, still ended up on me. Mom said, "Just help her this once. Later, when Chloe has her own family, she'll pay you back." Pay me back? She couldn't even pay for her own shampoo. No proper thank you. No one asked, "Harper, can you afford this?" No one asked, "Harper, are you doing okay?" Instead, Mom bragged, "Chloe's wedding is the most luxurious in the area." Dad said, "Harper earns well. Helping her sister a little won't hurt." Chloe simply accepted everything as her right. And me? I sat staring at my bank balance, silently asking myself, am I her sister? Or her sponsor? The night before the wedding, Chloe sat beside me, rested her head on my shoulder, and whispered, "Harper, I always knew you'd take care of everything for me. Take care of everything." In that moment, I realized my family never saw me as a person who needed love. They saw me as a resource, a tool, a financial solution that would show up the moment they needed it. And I, the foolish, agreeable one, let them. All of it would eventually explode at Thanksgiving, the night my mother said I wasn't even half of my sister. And I, Harper, the walking ATM, finally stood up, spoke the truth, spoke loudly, spoke enough to tear down every illusion they had built about me. If you think Thanksgiving is all turkey, mashed potatoes, and warm family vibes, then you've clearly never sat at my family's dinner table. I have. And that day, my mother hurled a sentence at me so sharp it detonated everything inside me. "Chloe is twice the woman you are." Just that. But those words, spoken in front of 23 relatives, sliced through the air like a blade on glass. I set my wine glass down, slowly, calmly. So calmly people probably thought I was going to swallow it like every other time. But I didn't. That day, Harper stopped being the obedient ATM. Harper became a ticking bomb. Silence. Silence so deep the hum of the AC sounded like an airplane engine. The whole table, Uncle Show-Off, Aunt Gossip Queen, turned into statues. My mother froze. My father nearly choked to death on a piece of turkey. Chloe? Chloe looked at me like I had just walked up and ripped her wedding gown in half at the altar. I stood up, took a breath, and began reading every single receipt. Sounds like a movie? It wasn't. I literally opened my banking app and read out loud, down to the last cent. I enunciated every number, every detail. Fairmont Castle venue, $25,000. Deposit paid, balance paid, not one single thank you. My uncle's jaw dropped. My cousin squinted like she had just unlocked the secret to getting rich. My mother started waving her hands wildly. "Harper, this is not something to bring up at the dinner table." I looked straight at her. "Oh, and where exactly should we place the sentence? Chloe is twice the woman you are. In the bathroom?" First wedding dress, $3,000. Second, $5,000. Third, $7,500. And the fourth? Mom, do you remember that one? Or did your brain delete that part? Chloe flushed bright red. "Harper, stop overreacting. I just wanted everything to be perfect." I smiled sweetly, on purpose. "Oh, you're perfect, all right. Perfect enough to change dresses more often than you change your mindset." The entire table stopped breathing. One aunt tried to sip her water but choked instead. Flower decorations for 60 tables. Flower arch outside. Flower arch inside. ceiling flowers, aisle flowers, changing room flowers, flower arrangements in the bathroom. My grandmother gasped, "Heavens above." I concluded, I genuinely didn't know if we were planning a wedding or hosting the National Botanical Exhibition. And the grand total, $80,000. Chloe's twice the woman I am? Great. Then she can take twice the responsibility and pay it back. No one spoke. No one could argue. Because everything I said was the truth they'd been avoiding for 6 months. My mother trembled. "Harper, you're ruining Thanksgiving for everyone." I looked around at 23 stunned faces. But this time, they weren't staring because they looked down on me. They were staring because they had just watched the mask come off. Because Harper had finally stopped being silent. I said, "I'm not ruining anything. I'm taking out the trash." And this wasn't even the biggest storm. The real one hit when Chloe stood up, pointed at me, and said a sentence so shameless. I almost laughed. The room, after my final sentence, fell into a kind of silence. Not normal silence. A silence so heavy you could hear someone's heart drop to the floor. Chloe shot to her feet, tears spilling at the perfect cinematic moment, straight out of a Netflix drama. Her voice trembled, though after all these years, I still couldn't tell if it was real or staged. "You're this jealous of me, Harper?" The entire long family table turned toward me as if I had just smeared black ink all over her wedding dress. My mother instantly wrapped her arms around Chloe, like comforting the lead actress after a dramatic climax. "Harper, haven't you done enough? This is a family dinner." I looked at the two of them, one performing, the other defending, and I realized I had been playing the supporting role in their story for far too long. My dad tried to wedge himself into the chaos, his voice heavy like he'd swallowed a rock. "Harper, money matters can be discussed later. This isn't the tight." I laughed. A soft, small laugh, but somehow more frightening than a scream. I stood up, pulling my chair back with a screech that made everyone jump. Then I spoke slowly, clearly, each word dropping onto the table like a stone. I am not this family's wallet. I am not Chloe's personal money printer. I am not responsible for funding anyone's luxury dreams. My mother slammed her hand on the table. "Harper, how dare you speak like that?" I turned and locked eyes with her. "Oh, I'm rude? Or are you just too used to my silence?" A few aunts and uncles stared down at their plates as if the turkey had suddenly become the most fascinating thing on earth. Chloe let tears fall one by one and delivered her classic line. "I thought you loved me." I gave a dry, humorless laugh. "Love? You call me paying $80,000 for your wedding. Love?" Chloe gasped, voice cracking. "You're ruining my life." And I said the sentence I wish I had said 5 years ago. "Your life fell apart because of you. I just stopped holding it together." The whole table stared. No one dared to speak. I grabbed my purse, slipped on my coat, and, for the first time in my life, stood tall in front of my family. I walked toward the door, but before stepping out, I said it clearly, like ringing a bell. Harper Bank, officially, closed. Not temporarily, not out of anger, but permanently. For anyone who only knows how to take without giving, who only demands but never appreciates. I opened the door. Cold air rushed in, like the entire world was inviting me to step out of the toxic cycle I'd lived in for 29 years. I turned back one last time, If anyone in this family wants a loan, feel free to try another bank. As for me, I'm going to find my freedom. I shut the door behind me. That click was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. That very night, my mother, my father, Chloe, and even the extended relatives began bombarding my phone with calls and messages. After that Thanksgiving dinner exploded like a black firework, I thought my family would at least cease fire for a few days to cool off. But no. 3 days later, at 9 a.m. on a Sunday, I got a message from Chloe. "Harper, I need to see you. Please." No sis, no apology, no, I was wrong, nothing. The words were cold as frost, but desperate, like someone standing at the edge of a cliff. I wasn't going to reply, but something strange pulled me. Not sympathy, but an instinct. A deep, unsettling sense that something big had happened. I chose a corner table. Chloe arrived late. Her eyes were swollen, hair a mess, mascara smeared like someone who had cried through the night. She sat down without even lifting her head. The air was so heavy I had to break the silence first. "What happened?" Chloe inhaled sharply, then released 2 words that made me think I'd heard wrong. "Tyler left me." I blinked, not because I was shocked, but because I had always known it would eventually happen. But Chloe kept talking, and that was the part that sent a chill down my spine. Her voice trembled violently. After the dinner, he asked about the money again. I told him that our parents paid for most of it, and you only helped with a small part. Chloe tightened her grip on her coffee cup so hard her knuckles went white. "You lied," I said. She nodded, eyes burning red. He asked me, "Why would you lie to your husband about something so important?" Then he said, "If you can hide this from me, what else could you hide?" I stayed silent. Chloe continued. "He packed his things and left that same night." "Harper, if you hadn't said the amount in front of everyone, Tyler wouldn't have left me." I lifted my head sharply. I couldn't believe my ears. "You're saying I ruined your marriage?" Chloe wiped her tears. "Not completely, but you made everything come out too fast." He was shocked, and I didn't have time to explain anything. I laughed. Not a happy laugh. The kind of laugh you let out when you finally realize people will let you carry blame for sins they've committed their entire lives. I leaned forward. "Tyler left you because you built your entire life on someone else's money. On lies. On dependence." Chloe froze. I continued, my voice low and sharp as a blade. "You've never been independent. Your whole life you've been shielded by the family. And when you entered marriage, a place where responsibility actually matters, you carried that same habit with you." Tears rolled down her face again, but this time, there was no performance. Her voice shattered like glass. "I don't have enough money for rent. I don't know if Tyler will come back. I don't know how to live if no one saves me." I sat there, looking at the sister who'd been placed on a pedestal her whole life, shielded so thoroughly she never learned what standing on her own legs meant. And for the first time ever, I realized something. Chloe wasn't evil. Chloe was simply never taught how to grow up. I sighed, set my coffee down, and said a sentence I knew would change both our lives. "But I'll teach you how to save yourself." Chloe's head snapped up, swollen eyes widening. What do you mean? I stood, putting on my coat. Your marriage didn't fall apart because I spoke the truth. It fell apart because you never learned how to stand on your own 2 feet. I pushed the cafe door open. Cold wind brushed across my face. But before leaving, I added, "Tonight, talk to Mom. Because I'm guessing she's furious now that the family's obedient ATM is gone." I left Chloe sitting there alone, in the soft background music of the cafe. And while I walked away, Chloe did something that sent my entire family into a panic. That night, I thought I would finally get a peaceful evening. Tea, a face mask, some chill music. But life never lets me chill when the Clark family is involved. The moment I got home, before I could even hang my coat, my phone buzzed. 1 call, then 2, then 3. Within 15 minutes I had 7 calls from Mom, 4 from Dad, 3 from Aunt Sandy, 2 from Uncle Mike, 11 texts from relatives, and more than 20 messages from Chloe. My phone was ringing like a fire alarm in a burning apartment building, and there was only one reason. Chloe had told the whole family that her marriage was falling apart, and that I was the reason. I finally picked up, and my mother screamed so loudly I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "Harper, what did you do? Your sister is falling apart." I replied calmly, "I didn't do anything. I told the truth." My mother practically shrieked. "The truth? You shocked her so badly she couldn't breathe. Tyler left. She cried the whole afternoon." Ah, so apparently my job was to keep her husband for her too? I said coldly, "If telling the truth is enough for a husband to leave, then the marriage was rotten from the start." Mom screamed louder, "Harper, she's your sister. Family protects each other." I laughed softly. Which family? The one that protects Chloe, but never me? Mom went silent for exactly 2 seconds, then snapped, "No matter what, you have to help her. What if she can't pay her rent?" And there it was, the real issue. Not love. Not concern. Not sisterhood. But who will pay for Chloe now? "Harper, can you please support Chloe for a while? Just a few months, until she stabilizes." Ah, yes. The same old lines. You pay. You take responsibility. You fix it. I replied, "No." Dad was stunned. "What do you mean, no? This is family." I spoke slowly, enunciating every word. "Harper, bank is closed." He went silent. In my entire life, I had never dared to speak like that. As Aunt Sandy, "Sweetheart, sisters should support each other. Why make such a big deal over some money?" Some $80,000, apparently. Uncle Mike, "Chloe has always been fragile. You're smarter, stronger. Why not help her a little?" Ah, so being strong meant being the family's debt warden. Aunt Linda, "If you don't help Chloe, she might really collapse." I asked, "Did you contribute a single dollar to that wedding?" Silence. Then came Chloe's messages. "Sis, please help me one more time. I'm panicking. If I lose the apartment, I don't know what I'll do. Mom says you're being stubborn. Dad says you're hurting the family. Please, don't abandon me." I finished reading. Exhaled. Chloe didn't understand at all. And my family? Even less. They all thought I was some unshakable tree, shake me with guilt, and money falls out. No one asked, "Is Harper tired? Does Harper have enough to buy her own home? Is Harper burned out after 8 years of paying for everything?" They only asked, "Harper, when are you paying again?" So I wrote in the family group chat, for the first time in my life, one single sentence. From today onward, all of Chloe's financial issues are Chloe's responsibility. I am no longer the family's problem solver. 30 seconds later, a family video call lit up my screen like a Christmas tree. I didn't answer. I turned my phone off, for the first time in 29 years. Right after I shut my phone down, my family did something even more insane. They held a family meeting, a real one. Chloe, mom, dad, aunts, uncles, everyone. The agenda. How do we force Harper to reopen her wallet? And during that meeting, Chloe revealed a secret about me that no one in the family had ever heard. A secret that turned everything upside down. The $80,000 number was wrong that night. After turning off my phone, I thought I had finally shut out all the noise from my family. But at exactly 6 a.m. the next morning, before the sky had even fully lightened, my phone started vibrating nonstop like an emergency alarm. This time, it was Chloe. I hesitated, but answered anyway, because something felt off. Not emotional, instinctual. Chloe spoke with a voice like someone had thrown ice water in her face. "Harper, we need to talk. Urgently." I sighed. "If this is about you needing money again..." Chloe cut me off, almost shouting, "It's not about money. It's about the number." My brow furrowed. "What number?" A moment of silence. Then Chloe said, "The $80,000. That number is wrong." My heart dropped. Wrong? How? Wrong because of who? And wrong? By how much? I snapped. "Explain. Now." Chloe exhaled hard, the way someone does right before confessing a crime. "Last night, Tyler and I went through every single expense. Harper, you remembered wrong. It wasn't $80,000. My blood went cold. "Then how much?" Chloe swallowed, each word slow like she was afraid lightning would strike. "Only $32,167 was from you." I shot to my feet like someone had yanked the chair out from under me. "You're joking." "No. Tyler sent me all the statements. A lot of things you thought you paid for were actually partly paid by mom and dad, partly paid by Tyler, or things you covered first but Tyler later reimbursed, and you forgot." I went silent. Completely. As if someone had punched me straight in the chest. So where did the $80,000 even come from? Why had I carried that number like a stone for 6 months? I shouted into the phone. "Say it clearly. Did I misremember? Or are you trying to rewrite the story?" Chloe burst into tears. "Harper, this is the truth. Check your email. I sent you everything." I opened my inbox. Dozens of PDFs. Every transaction, every invoice. I read, and kept reading. Until finally, I let the phone drop onto the table. Not because I didn't believe it, but because I felt sick. The numbers matched perfectly, horrifyingly. Many things I paid for were later reimbursed and I forgot. Some things I covered the deposit for, but mom and dad paid most of it. The honeymoon? Tyler paid nearly all of it. The decorations? I only paid half. The engagement party? Mom and dad paid entirely. There was only one conclusion. The $80,000 wasn't a lie. It was the product of 6 months of burnout, resentment, and feeling used, all inflating into one explosive number. And in that moment, the world collapsed in silent devastation inside me. Chloe continued, voice trembling. "Harper, you weren't wrong for feeling taken advantage of. But you were wrong about the amount. You humiliated me in front of the whole family, over a number that wasn't true." I couldn't speak, not one word. But the biggest shock was Chloe's next sentence. After the family meeting last night, Mom said you disgraced the entire family with misinformation. I gripped my phone tightly. What did she say? Chloe answered, each word slicing like a blade. She said, Harper isn't just ungrateful. She's delusional. My eyes burned, but not with tears, with rage, with humiliation, with the kind of betrayal that hits you from the inside. Because the enemy, this time, was your own memory. No, I wasn't delusional. I didn't imagine years of being the fixer, the emotional wallet, the reliable one, the one who was always less than Chloe. The pain was real. The injustice was real. The exhaustion was real. But the $80,000 had turned me into someone who exploded at the wrong target. Not wrong in emotion, wrong in math. Chloe whispered like she was afraid I'd fall apart. Harper, Mom wants another family meeting tonight. To correct things. I let out a hollow laugh. Correct for who? For me? Or to save face for her? Chloe didn't answer, and that silence said everything. Then suddenly she said something that made my whole body go still. Harper, I think you need to talk to everyone again. About everything. I asked, meaning what? And Chloe said, meaning you were wrong. But so was our family. If you're willing to face them, I'll tell my part too. I inhaled deeply. Part of me wanted to hang up, disappear, never look back. But another part, the strongest part, said, this isn't the ending. This is where the real story begins. Chloe sniffled. Harper, will you come to the family meeting tonight? I looked out the window. Gray sky, cold air, but everything suddenly so clear. And I said a sentence that made Chloe choke up. I'll go, but not to apologize. Because tonight's meeting will expose every truth the Clark family buried for 29 years. And the one who starts it is me. So Tyler showed me the statements when I realized I had also spiced up the truth. That night, after my call with Chloe, I sat alone in my small apartment. Only the warm yellow light above the kitchen counter, and me caught between two things. The truth, and a pain that had swollen into a monster big enough to distort my memory. I reopened every file Chloe sent, every statement, every date, every amount. By the time the clock hit 2:47 a.m., I no longer knew how many times I had reread the same invoices. I only knew one thing. I had said $80,000, when the truth was only $32,467. It wasn't Chloe who deceived me. It wasn't my mother. It was me. The daughter who endures until she explodes, who had deceived myself. But I was wrong about the number, and wrong about how much I had let my pain rewrite my memory. For 29 years, I had worn the labels. Responsible eldest daughter. Harper who always handles it. Harper who is strong. Harper who sacrifices. I had been used, downplayed, compared endlessly. The wounds piled up like stones in my backpack. And when I finally couldn't carry them anymore, I exploded. But instead of hitting the real target, I hit a number that wasn't accurate. And that turned me, for the first time in my life, into someone who was wrong. Someone who overreached. Someone who exaggerated, without realizing she was doing it. And I didn't cry. Something simpler happened. I felt humiliated. Humiliated because I was weaker than I believed. Humiliated because I thought I was rational, but let emotions twist the truth. Humiliated because I stood in front of 23 relatives and said things that weren't entirely accurate. Humiliated because I had unknowingly pushed Chloe's marriage closer to collapse. Humiliated because my family finally had the chance to say, See? Harper always exaggerates. Harper always makes things dramatic. I dreaded that sentence because part of it was true. I wasn't wrong for wanting fairness. I was wrong for letting pain guide me instead of facts. I had spent my whole life as the one who endures. And when I finally exploded, I became the one who attacks. No balance. And for the first time in 29 years, I looked in the mirror and saw, Harper is human. She can be wrong. She can go too far. She can let old wounds distort her memories. She is not a robot. Not the perfect big sister. Not a mobile bank. Not a quiet superhero. She is simply Harper. A person full of cracks. What if the first time I stood up for myself, I used the wrong ammunition? My whole body went cold. Because the answer was yes. I had stood up with the wrong bullet. But the act of standing up, that was still real and still painful. I had two choices. 1, stay silent, protect my pride, ignore the incorrect number. Let my family think I was stubborn, but refuse to acknowledge anything. 2, or tell the truth. Face the mistake I made, accept the discomfort, and rewrite the story with maturity. I chose the second. Not because my family deserved it, but because I deserved to live with a lighter heart. Part of growing up, I realized, was understanding that Chloe did not deserve the full force of my explosion. Not when part of it came from my misremembered math. She had done plenty wrong. My family had done even more. But I wasn't innocent in the way I thought I was. I inhaled deeply, opened my phone, and typed a message to Chloe. Tonight I'll go to the family meeting, but I'm not coming to blame anyone. I'm coming to tell the truth. All of it. Send. I checked the time, 4:23 a.m. A sleepless night. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was truly growing. While I spent the night confronting myself, my mother was busy preparing a full-blown trial, with me as the defendant and the entire Clark clan as the jury. And the only person who would stand on my side during that meeting was not Chloe, but someone no one expected. The family meeting was set for 7 p.m. Everyone showed up. No one smiled. No one made small talk. The air was thick, like the moment before a storm, and I felt as if I were walking into a courtroom. My mother sat at the head of the table, fingers laced tightly, eyes sharp as blades. My father sat beside her, avoiding my gaze. My aunts and uncles stared at me like they were watching a live courtroom drama. Chloe stood near the door, her eyes tired, but something was different. The defensiveness was gone. She looked ready to face something. I took a deep breath, ready to speak the truth that had eaten me alive all night. But my mother opened the meeting first. I closed my eyes for 2 seconds. I knew she would begin like this. She continued, "You exaggerated everything. $80,000? Do you know how shocked the entire family was when they heard that?" Chloe's husband left her. The family is humiliated. Do you even think about the consequences? Each word landed like a stone against my chest. I opened my eyes, stood tall, and said calmly, "I will take responsibility for what is mine. But not everything is my fault." The room rippled, subtly, but unmistakably, as if no one expected composure from me. My mother snapped, "Then who exactly are you blaming?" I looked straight at her. "All of you, for 29 years of different treatment, for the comparisons, the expectations, the endless demands. And I'm sorry for getting the number wrong. Silence. Dead, heavy silence. I continued. I was wrong to trust my memory completely. Wrong to let my emotions lead instead of facts. I'm sorry, Chloe, for saying things that weren't accurate. I turned to my sister. Chloe held her breath. So did everyone else. But I will not apologize for how I felt. I will not apologize for standing up for myself, because I have been dismissed for too long. My father finally spoke for the first time in the meeting. Harper, you're confusing things. I answered, no, I'm seeing them clearly, maybe for the first time. Then, something no one expected happened. Chloe stepped forward, voice shaky but steady. Mom, Dad, Harper isn't blaming randomly. She's saying what we've all avoided for years. The whole room froze. My mother's eyes widened. Chloe, what are you talking about? Chloe inhaled deeply. I'm grown now. I can't let her shoulder everything alone. I looked at her and it felt like my heart cracked open, but this time in the best possible way. I know I was favored. I know Harper had to carry things I never had to worry about. My whole life. Everyone protected me, while Harper had to protect herself. My mother stiffened. Chloe, what's gotten into you? Chloe shook her head. Nothing. I just finally woke up. She turned to me, eyes so sincere it almost made me cry. Harper, I'm sorry. Not for the $80,000, but for letting you carry everything in this family alone. My throat tightened. I couldn't speak. Then Chloe said the sentence that froze the room like marble. And I'm sorry for not protecting you, from our own family. My father scowled. Chloe, don't exaggerate. But Chloe turned on them, calm, firm, and stronger than I had ever seen her. No, I'm telling the truth. That Thanksgiving night, Harper wasn't wrong to feel used. She wasn't wrong to feel unappreciated. Then she paused, voice soft but unwavering. She was wrong about the number, but the family was wrong about everything else. I looked at her, and for the first time I saw a Chloe who wasn't the pampered princess. Not the girl who cried to get her way. Not the center of the universe, but a woman, finally taking responsibility. No matter how many storms we had gone through, no matter how far apart we once stood, Chloe had finally grown up, and I, for the first time in my life, was no longer fighting alone. Because when my parents were pushed into a corner, a secret they had tried desperately to hide finally slipped out. A secret tied directly to why they had always treated Chloe differently. And that secret blew the room apart a second time. Rejecting another shadow child. The atmosphere in the family meeting shifted after Chloe's confession. It felt as if someone had unlocked a door the Clark family had kept sealed for 29 years. My mother sat in an unusual silence. My father leaned back, fingers interlocked, like a man trying to hold on to something slipping out of his grasp. The entire family was quiet. No one dared speak. It felt like the room was about to exhale a secret buried beneath its floorboards for decades. I looked at my parents, not with anger this time, but with expectation, waiting for them to say what I had always sensed but never heard aloud. And it was my mother who broke the silence first. Her sentence hit the table like a foreign object. I froze. Chloe stopped crying. My father turned to my mother in disbelief. In 29 years, she had never said those words to me. Not once. My mother continued, her voice no longer sharp, but exhausted, like someone who had carried an emotional burden for too long. I always loved Chloe, and I assumed you didn't need my love. A sharp ache shot through my chest. Not from pain, but from hearing something painfully, devastatingly true. You never needed anyone. You never asked for anything. She looked at me with eyes I had never seen on her. Eyes that admitted wrongdoing. I thought you were strong enough to handle everything. So I poured all my fear, all my hopes, into Chloe. I was afraid she would fail. I let out a hollow laugh. And what about me? You weren't afraid of me failing? My mother stared down at her hands. I didn't have the strength to care for 2 children who needed me. The entire room went still. That sentence stripped everything bare. It wasn't that I was less capable. It wasn't that I was less lovable. It wasn't that I was compared because something was wrong with me. It was because I was treated differently simply because I wasn't weak. And in this family, the weak child gets the love. My father added quietly, "Your mother's right. We always assumed you'd be fine. You were too independent." He swallowed. I used to think, Harper is okay. Harper doesn't need help. But that thought turned you into a shadow in this family. I felt something collapse inside me. A tired, bitter recognition. So for 29 years, none of you saw me as a real child? My father replied, "Not true. We just chose you as the child who didn't need care." Chloe covered her mouth, tears spilling again. "If we keep going like this," Chloe said softly, "this family will only create broken children." I looked at her. She didn't sound like a younger sister anymore. Chloe turned toward me. "Harper is not an ATM, not a superhero, not someone's shadow. She's someone who has lived like the abandoned child of this family for 29 years. My mother's hands trembled. Then something happened that I never thought I would witness. My mother said, voice cracking, "I don't want to lose another child." I froze. "Another?" My father explained slowly. "Chloe almost lost her marriage because we spoiled her too much. And if we continue like this, we'll lose you, because you've run out of strength to endure." My mother nodded, eyes glistening. I don't want Harper to be the shadow child anymore. A child who does everything right but still gets ignored. My whole life I had waited for this day. A day when my parents not only heard me, but understood. Not only acknowledged their mistakes, but wanted to fix them. And my mother said, I didn't favor Chloe because she deserved more. I feared repeating my mistake with her. I asked quietly, "What mistake?" My mother looked at me, sorrow in her eyes like a lost youth resurfaced. My mistake was not being good enough for 2 children. And I was wrong to let you grow up alone. My chest loosened. Not forgiveness, but release. Chloe reached for my hand, not because she wanted me to save her, but because she wanted to stand with me. "Harper, I want to start over with you." My mother hesitated. "Start over. How?" Chloe said, "Start over as equals. No more older sister does everything. No more I get saved, you get ignored. No more shadow and center. Just 2 grown women." I looked at her. She looked back. And for the first time in 29 years, I saw. Chloe didn't want protection. She wanted independence. She wanted to stand on her own, and beside me, not above me. Harper, my mother whispered, I want to learn how to love you properly. I replied, and I want to learn how to forgive, just enough so it doesn't hurt anymore. 2 imperfect sentences, but a beginning. A beginning I never thought I'd have. Because just when everything seemed calmer, one relative stood up and asked the most sensitive, brutal question of all. Why did Harper believe she paid $80,000? Why did Harper exaggerate her memory that much? Does Harper have psychological issues? The entire room froze, and I spoke a truth no one saw coming. 3 days after the family meeting, a meeting that left the entire Clark clan exhausted like they'd run an emotional marathon, my mother sent a message. Sunday, I want to cook dinner. No discussions, no arguments, no blaming. It took me a few minutes to understand her meaning. This wasn't an invitation. It was an experiment. A test version of what the Clark family could become. I went to my parents' house unsure whether I'd leave healed or more wounded. But the moment I stepped through the door, I knew something had changed. No one yelled at me for being late. No one looked at me like a walking wallet. No one said, Harper, help me with this. Code for turning me into the table's unpaid servant. No performative kindness. No strategic guilt-tripping. No theatrics. A small thing. But to me, it was an entire universe of difference. There were no comparisons between me and Chloe. No conversations glorifying her marriage or her accomplishments. That night, we talked about Dad wanting to replant the garden, Mom learning to bake instead of buying pastries, Chloe landing a big project at her new job, and me considering a career change into interior architecture. No criticism, no pressure disguised as advice. No, well, you should do it this way. Just listening. I couldn't remember the last time my family sat together without anyone being forced into the role of the perfect child. For a second, I flinched, expecting Chloe to pull one of her old stunts. But she didn't. She said, I want to thank Harper for saying the things we should have said a long time ago. The room fell silent again, but not the suffocating silence from Thanksgiving. This one felt like breath being held. Chloe turned to everyone. If that dinner hadn't happened, I'd still be a grown child who depended on everyone. Now I'm learning to stand on my own, and I'm grateful to my sister for that. My parents looked at each other, not defensive, not irritated, but recognizing something, maybe for the first time. I smiled at Chloe. A real smile, not the polite kind I'd worn for decades. Mom said, From now on, I don't want the two of you compared anymore. This family doesn't need a winner and a loser, just 2 daughters living as who they really are. I almost didn't believe my ears. My mother, the self-appointed CEO of the Clark Comparison Department, was shutting it down herself. Dad nodded. No child in this family will be a shadow anymore. The words lodged in my throat. 29 years. I had waited for that one sentence. I took my first bite without bracing myself. I laughed without watching my tone. I breathed without feeling the invisible backpack of responsibility strapped to my shoulders. For the first time in my life, I ate a family meal without being judged, being compared, being gently reminded, or being smothered by expectations. No roles, no scripts, no hierarchy, just family. Version 2.0. Not perfect, but honest. Awkward, but sincere. And for me, that was enough for my heart to begin healing. It wasn't a hug to ask for money, not a hug to butter me up, but a hug simply to say thank you. She whispered, "Thank you for not abandoning me, even though you had every right to." I squeezed her shoulder gently. "This time, you stood up on your own. I just stood beside you." Chloe smiled, and for the first time, I didn't see the helpless princess. I saw a woman learning to walk on her own feet. I realized a family doesn't have to be perfect to be loved. It just has to be honest and respectful. And Harper, the child who once lived like a shadow, was finally stepping out of the dark after 29 years. No longer begging for affection, no longer buying acceptance with money. Harper was finally seen, heard, and loved the right way. Rebuilding a marriage with the truth. After our version 2.0 family dinner, I thought I had seen the full extent of Chloe's transformation. I was wrong. 2 weeks later, Chloe showed up at my apartment on a Saturday morning. No warning, no glamorous makeup, no designer bags, no silk dresses, just Chloe, raw, unpolished, unmasked, and in her hand was a brown envelope. She set it on my kitchen counter. "Harper, this is my payment for this month, and I want to talk." I opened the envelope. Not a few hundred like before, but $200. I stared at her. "Where did you get this much?" Chloe smiled, tired but proud. "I worked overtime at my job, and I sold some dresses I don't need anymore." I froze. This was Chloe, the girl who once lived on a diet of entitlement, who believed she deserved everything without consequence. Standing in my kitchen, earning, sacrificing, taking responsibility. This wasn't a small change. It was a rebirth. Chloe continued, voice slow and steady. "I told Tyler everything. No sugarcoating, no excuses, no hiding." I sat down, heart caught between hope and fear for her. And then, Chloe let out a long breath. Eyes wet but brighter than I'd ever seen. "Tyler said, if we aren't honest with each other, then marriage is just a theater, and we've been acting for too long." I clenched my hands. That sentence hit straight into me. Chloe continued, "I admitted everything. Not being honest about who paid for the wedding, exaggerating my struggles, relying too much on the family, and not respecting your efforts." Tyler cried. She wiped her eyes. "He said this was the first time he ever saw me be completely honest." I asked, "Do the two of you still have a chance?" Chloe sat beside me. "Yes, but we have to start from the beginning. New rules, no lies, no blaming, no depending on anyone else." I exhaled, soft, but full of pride. I opened it. It was a handwritten contract, surprisingly neat and serious. Repayment plan to Harper to be completed in 18 months. Chloe explained, "I want to repay the full $32,467. Not because you asked, but because it's part of me growing up." I looked at my sister. And for the first time, I didn't see the selfish princess of the past. I saw a woman rising from the ruins she created. No running, no avoiding, no blaming. I don't just want to repay the money. I want to repay respect, gratitude, and the years of your youth you spent carrying me. Something twisted tightly inside my chest. "Chloe, I don't need you to make this a big deal." She held my hand. "No, Harper. You deserve to be honored the way you live. I won't let you think you're a shadow in this family anymore." The apartment was modest, nothing extravagant, but bright, tidy, warm. Tyler shook my hand. Thank you for helping us grow up, even if it happened in a rather explosive way. I laughed. Chloe linked her arm through his. Our marriage isn't something money buys anymore. We're rebuilding it with the truth. And as I watched them stand together, steadier, clearer, more mature, I knew. This family crisis didn't just break things, it rebuilt them. Piece by piece, heart by heart. She no longer asked for money, no longer avoided responsibility, no longer waited to be rescued, no longer lived as a sheltered child. Chloe had learned the biggest lesson of her life. Taking responsibility is the foundation of every relationship. Sisterhood included, marriage included. When I left their place that day, Chloe hugged me tightly. I'm repaying every dollar, but what I really want to repay is your trust. I smiled and hugged her back. You're doing better than I ever expected. Because just as everything began to settle, my parents proposed something no one saw coming. Harper, we want the whole family to go to therapy together. A decision big enough to write a new chapter, and powerful enough to change how we love each other forever. No longer living as the replacement child. Our first family therapy session felt like placing the entire Clark family on an operating table. No acting. No roles like competent older sister, fragile younger sister, all-knowing parents. Everyone had to tell the truth, including the truths no one had ever dared to touch. The therapist looked at me first and asked, Harper, how many years have you believed it was your responsibility to fill the gaps left by other people? I couldn't answer right away. Chloe looked at me. My parents looked at me. And for the first time in my life, I looked directly at that question. I'd filled the disappointment my parents projected onto Chloe. I had filled the consequences Chloe had never learned to carry. I had filled the emotional potholes my family refused to face. I carried things for Chloe so she wouldn't stumble. I carried things for my parents so they wouldn't worry. I carried things for everyone because I thought that was my role. And then I said the words I'd never dared to say. I've lived like a backup system. If Chloe breaks, I fix. If the family lacks, I fill. If anyone needs me, I show up. But if I need someone, there's no one. The room fell silent. Not defensive silence, but understanding silence. The therapist asked, Harper, do you want to keep living in that model? I didn't need a single second. No, I want to live as myself, not a replacement part, not the backup child, not the family's emergency fund, not Chloe's permanent armor. I turned to my parents. From today on, I will not take responsibility for things that aren't mine. My father frowned, but didn't argue. My mother's eyes glistened. Can you explain more clearly, Harper? I inhaled deeply. 1. I will no longer pay for anyone in this family, whether it's $100 or $100,000. Chloe nodded, holding my hand, as if promising she would never let me carry for her again. 2. I will not let anyone use my sense of responsibility against me. No one gets to assume I'm the one who handles everything. My father sighed, but didn't protest. 3. If anyone insults me, compares me, or belittles me, I will leave the conversation. No arguments, no explanations. I will simply leave. My mother looked at me, guilt rising in her voice. I understand, because I was the one who did that the most. 4. I need people to ask if I want to help, not assume that I will. 5. And finally, I will not ask for love anymore. If someone loves me, show it. If not, I will still live well. That last line made my mother cry. Not tears of hurt, but the tears of someone who finally understands their own mistakes. The therapist concluded, Harper doesn't need to be the strongest person in the family to earn love. She only needs to be loved as herself. After the session, Chloe hugged me. Harper, I promise I won't let you become the person who carries everything for me anymore. I placed my hand on her shoulder. And I promise I won't live as anyone's shadow. I will live as Harper, fully. I started saying no. No explanations, no guilt. I stopped replying to distant relatives asking to borrow money. I sent one sentence. I can't help. I hope you find another solution. I stopped attending the family dinners that suffocated me, only the ones that felt healthy. I hired a financial coach to learn how to prioritize myself. I allowed myself to be human, to cry, to ask for help, to fail without fearing comparison. I began dating again, not to prove anything, but because I deserve to be loved correctly. One evening my mother called, not to ask for anything, not to talk about Chloe, but simply to say, Harper, I just wanted to ask, are you doing okay today? I had waited 29 years for that question, and when it came, soft but strong, it healed something in me that I thought was permanent. I am no longer the replacement child, no longer the automatic older sister, no longer Harper the bank, no longer the faint, invisible shadow in the Clark family. I am Harper, a woman who knows her worth and sets boundaries as an act of deep self-love. And since I changed, my family changed too. Not perfectly, but honestly. Not loudly, but enough. Years later, no more debt, only a new kind of family bond. 3 years have passed since the night the Clark family blew up like fireworks across the dinner table. 3 years since the declaration that left everyone speechless. The bank of Harper is closed. Everyone thought that after that night, my family would fall apart beyond repair. But strangely, sometimes something has to break completely before people finally rebuild it the right way. And we, the Clark family, chose to rebuild. The Harper of 3 years later is nothing like the Harper from before. I am no longer the multitasking eldest sister, no longer the backup plan for everyone's responsibilities, and certainly no longer the household's walking safe. I've learned to live for myself. I bought a small, charming house near the lake, with my own money, not a single dollar borrowed. I changed jobs, got a raise, and for the first time in my life, I had savings dedicated to my own dreams. My nights were no longer spent crying over feeling used. I learned pottery, meditation, and cooking meals just to spoil myself. And Chloe? If you met Chloe today, you'd never believe she was once the girl who leaned on everyone but herself. She grew up, truly grew up. She and Liam, after 2 years of therapy, now understand each other better than they did when they first married. No more blaming. No more running away. No more storming out whenever things got hard. And the part that surprised me most, she paid off all 32's $467 in 2 years, with money she earned herself through discipline she never had before. The day she made the final payment, Chloe hugged me tightly. I don't owe you money anymore, but there's something I still owe. A thank you for making me grow up. I laughed as tears slipped down my cheeks. And my parents? Strangely, they changed too. No more sighs of, "Why can't you be like other people's daughters?" No more unfair comparisons. No more forcing one child to match the other. They learned how to listen, how to step back, and how to love without conditions. My mother, the world champion of razor-sharp remarks, now asks at every family gathering, "Are you two doing okay? If there's anything we're not doing well, tell us so we can fix it." A simple question, but one I waited nearly 30 years to hear. Then one day, the Clarks had a reunion dinner. Not the chaotic Thanksgiving from years ago. No tears, no criticism, no comparisons. Just a round table, a warm meal, and people who no longer carried mountains of expectation on their backs. Liam poured the wine. Chloe brought homemade pie. My parents set the table. I looked around and realized this was the family I once wished for. And somehow, we had become it. Near the end of dinner, Chloe said, "Harper, you know, I used to owe you money. Now, the only thing I owe is a kinder, better sisterhood." I smiled, "Then pay in yearly installments." The whole table burst into laughter. We are not perfect, but we are real, and we learned how to love each other again. Not through money, not through expectations, but through honesty, accountability, boundaries, and the understanding that everyone deserves to be loved the right way. No more monetary debt, no more duty-based obligation. Only this, a promise to become better versions of ourselves, and a new kind of family bond, rebuilt with our whole hearts. Looking back on that journey, it still sends a shiver through me. One chaotic dinner, one family that seemed beyond saving, and one girl, me, who finally learned how to stand on her own side. I realized that family shouldn't be a burden carried by just one person. It should be a path everyone willingly walks toward one another. And sometimes, to receive love the right way, we first have to cut away the things that were wrong. Today, I owe no one money. But I know I still owe my family one thing: a stronger Harper, a more loving Harper, a Harper who knows how to value herself. If you've ever been like me, silent for too long, sacrificing too much, leave a comment. I'd love to hear your story. And remember to subscribe so we can walk through the next chapters of this journey together. Thank you for staying with me until the very end.